So we looked at these 13 companies. We started crunching numbers. We started just, tallying how they were spending their campaign contributions. And it became apparent really quickly that Joe Biden was getting the majority of them at more of a 3-to-1 ratio to Donald Trump. When you look at the companies, the key companies that we're looking at, and then you look at the cumulative campaign contributions they made in the 2020 election, it turned out to be like around 40 million, but 55% of that went to Democrats.
Right.
We go out to vote and we vote for this person or that person. But when a big, powerful company that already has access to the behind the doors meetings and with key congressional members, they're actually voting for both, right? They vote for both people. And that's exactly what we saw, except it was so evident that they judging, like looking at the 55% of the Democrats, looking at the 3-to-1 ratio to Biden to Trump, that it was bending this industry, a powerful part of what shapes policy and strategy on the border and immigration enforcement was bending towards the Democrats.
You show that they're so cynical, right? So in 2018, when there's an incumbent president, they're giving all their money to the Republicans, right? But it's only during a toss-up elections, right, a presidential election, that they hedge their bets.
It's actually quite brilliant on their part if you think about it. They don't lose.
It's literally an investment in their own business, right, through politics. I just wanted to read what Core Civic said. They said, the demand for our facilities and services could be adversely affected by the relaxation of enforcement efforts. So that's why they invest in the Republicans, right? Because they know that the Republicans are for enforcement. They're the law and order. Law and order. I just got finished reading Stamped from the Beginning, Ibram X. Kendi's book on the history of racist ideas in the United States. And he talks about how law and order is a code for securing white supremacy, the white supremacist order. It means cracking down on black and brown people. And law and order ties into this border security thing, right? Where, I was reading Deloitte's rationalization for giving, and they said, we're stopping terrorists, we're stopping human trafficking, stopping human smuggling, but we know that that's not what the border security mostly hurts innocent people, right? Asylum seekers, people who have nothing, they don't know, they're not terrorists or any criminals at all. They just want to work hard. That's who it really hurts. But it's hidden behind this law and order, Homeland Security charade, a facade, right?
It's all put in that sort of rhetoric, the customs and border protection, protecting who, what, right. And you start to think about it. Well, you look at the strategy on the border, and it's prevention through deterrence, which means that it's anything but protection. It's making things unsafe for people. It's making things dangerous for people. It's making things deadly for people. So it's customs and border protection. That's not what you're doing. So it's just a smoke screen. And then you don't focus on the correct problems. The correct questions are not being asked. Like Eduardo Galeano's book, the Upside Down World, where protection is really not protection.
Right.
Security is really insecurity.
Orwell was right, man. He has no idea how right he would be that everything would become its opposite, right? Tyranny is freedom. We have to give up our freedoms to protect our freedom, right? How does that make sense? And in Empire of Borders, and you talk about this we were just talking about, you were on Factually, the podcast, you said that the border is a proving ground for the weaponization, for the security apparatus, right? And I think Orwell said this, speaking of Orwell, that the way, people were so shocked by what happened in Nazi Germany, right? How can this civilized country do this to, its own citizens, right? And Orwell said, no, well, Europe's been doing this to Africa for decades, and they were just practicing over there. He has this line where, he says, colonialism is a nation practicing on another people what they're eventually going to do to their own people. And you see that with the border, right? You have the security apparatus and treating migrants a certain way. And then, like you said in that podcast, then they move it to Portland, right? And they're treating these protesters as if they're undocumented people crossing the border because they've practiced it already. That's Biden's policy, right? Biden, he's against Trump's wall, even though he's not tearing it down. He's against Trump's physical wall, but he's very for a wall. He's for a technological wall. And what you show is that there's more money in that technological wall. There's more money to be in contracts in that technological wall than in some, measly physical wall.
Biden said, I'm not going to build another foot of wall. So you have that strong like statement that's going to be really appealing to the public, right? It's like, oh yes, we have to make standing up to Trump. And then the next clause of the sentence, he says, instead we're going to divert this to, and then you want him to say like healthcare or
education,
anything. But then he says technology, and technology, and it's like, oh, I see what you're doing. It's this big, bad, ugly wall, right? Trump, it's associated with Trump. It is, of course. And then you appeal to people, but then you make the technology sound innocuous or even humane, right? Oh, we're going to take a more humane approach. And it isn't. The way that the border functions, the technology is a part of the wall. It's like they call it a smart wall, a smart border, a border wall system. And a border wall system has a border wall, and then it has armed agents that are looking at the wall and patrolling everywhere else too. And then it has technologies, and technologies are part of this whole apparatus that's in the prevention through deterrence strategy, which is meant to force people into more desolate, dangerous, deadly places. So when Biden says that, he's basically saying, I'm going to keep building the wall.
Right,
That's what I hear. I'm going to keep building the wall. And contractors, I presume they gave him a lot of campaign contributions. What they're thinking is that we're going to get money for this. And when you're talking about the technologies, you're talking about like cameras that can see 7 miles away, night vision cameras, thermal energy, ground sweeping radar that has a 13-mile radius, drones.
These are the Predator B drones that are used in Afghanistan, right?
Exactly. They want to put like facial recognition technology on drones, medium-sized drones now, so they can fly down and take people's pictures. So this sort of biometrics, facial recognition, iris recognition, their new system that Homeland Security is implementing is called HART. It's Homeland Advanced Technology Recognition.
You see what they name things too? HART?
Yes. HART.
Like you said in that podcast too, that they were flying the same, this is CBP, Customs and Border Protection, flying drones over Minneapolis. For anybody listening, watching, who thinks that, oh, this is just at the border and great, it's getting more technologically advanced. Oh, great, they're going to hear that you said, oh, there's drones that can swoop down and take a migrant's facial recognition. They think only a migrant. No, those drones are going to be over Chicago, New York, LA, eventually, all in the name of law and order and keeping us safe, Homeland Security, all these Orwellian terms, right? You also show like this really started, I guess, under Reagan with 1986, right? But really got going under Clinton, right? With the building of the wall and the Operation Safeguard and Gatekeeper and all this stuff. And then you show that every subsequent administration just takes what the preceding administration did and just ratchets it up a little bit, right? Bush did that with Clinton's policy. Obama did that with Bush's policy. And then Trump did that with Obama's policy, right? Obama was, like you mentioned, and people may forget, that he was the only president in American history to ever deport nearly 3 million people. Trump didn't come anywhere near that number. But Trump catches hell, and you heard it sometimes, right? When he was putting kids in cages, people were saying, well, Obama built those cages, right? And that's he kind of had that in mind, but he couldn't do that with his base. Now, if a Republican gets in with the infrastructure that a Democrat's built, yeah, he can put in kids in cages easily. So in a way, the president of the United States isn't really in charge of anything, isn't really effectual anymore. He isn't like what we used to think of like FDR or even Lyndon B. Johnson, somebody who can get things done. A modern day U.S. president is really beholden, really works for the system already in place. And his effectiveness is really, he's just a spokesman, right? He's just a salesman for the system. He sells it.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly, really. It seems to me
that's sad, man.